Alabama, there's been a lot of jokes thrown around that it was just a classic Nick Saban paying the committee off, which it almost seems like he might have at this point. I mean, in my opinion, I'll start this off. This team had an awful season, okay? And I mean it in comparison with saying they're a top 4 team and what Alabama is mostly known for, okay? People keep referring strength of schedule here, and I get it. WhoDeany, I know you have that in front of you. You could tell me in a sec, but they almost lost and did lose the following games that I had here that I think are most alarming. Auburn, they barely beat 27-24. Arkansas, who wasn't good, they almost lost, barely won that game 24-21. Texas A&M was a close victory too, 26-20. The University of South Florida, which I think speaks volumes, they only beat them 17-3, and they're horrible. And at one point, they were losing that game, I think, in like halftime. And then they lost to Texas 34-24. I mean, if the question is top 4, then I say no, this is not a top 4 team. I think that Georgia is better than they are. Even though they beat Georgia, so what? Both teams are 12-1. And I think that Alabama's full season here just kind of tells you that they weren't Alabama all season. And I don't think that's fair.
Okay. Alabama's strength of record 4, strength of schedule 5. They are the SEC champs. The SEC is God's gift to college football. That is how it's always been. Do I think that they 100% deserve it? No. Do I think they had a better option? No. They beat
to do what? A better option to do what?
To be the 4th team.
Right, but okay, but I'm trying to get to a point here.
I know what you're going to say. Is there a better option for somebody to compete for a national title? Yes.
To get more viewers is what I was getting at. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going off of, if you set up a round robin, I don't want to jump ahead. But I mean, we're talking about the SEC. So can I jump to Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you set up a round robin or Vegas had them play each single games, Georgia would be favored in every single one of these games. So
maybe Michigan.
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing I can say about Georgia is I don't think Beck is that good. I think he's the worst quarterback left, to be honest with you. Out of, like, if Travis was healthy, right? Yeah. Like, I think he's the worst quarterback left. So I don't think the quarterback play is good from Georgia. Do I think that's overall probably the best team in college football and was for the last 3 years? Yes. But the fact that Bama beat him on the last week of the season, when the committee has to make a decision in 12 hours, do I think a number 1 team who's been the consensus one all year, do I think the 1 should drop to 6? No. But how do I put Georgia in?
And not Bama.
When Bama beats Georgia and the only loss Bama has is to Texas. That's hard to justify for me. So you guys are going to think I'm crazy. I think they got the top 4 right. Regardless of what you look at regarding the eye test and all that, when you look at Georgia's strength of schedule, which is 37, everybody else you can have an argument with. Georgia does not when it comes to strength of schedule, in which they did struggle against Georgia Tech, which that game was never comfortable, and that team's fucking horrendous. So there's arguments for both sides. I just think it's really hard if you're the committee. The SEC champ is Alabama. Alabama beats Georgia. Alabama loses to Texas, and that's kind of the end of the story.
So my thing about it is like the ACC is, the odd man out. It's Power 5 and only 4 are getting in here, when I think it should be the Big 12. When you're looking at that when conference to conference, I think the ACC matches up better than the Big 12. And when you take regardless of if it was a close loss, if they beat Alabama or they didn't, Texas still has a loss. And to talk about what you were talking about, Jedi, when you were listing those close games that Bama played, and it's like the committee's giving them the benefit of the doubt of, oh, well, they still won the game. Well, Florida State did all of that. They won every single game, and they didn't lose a game. Yes, there were some close ones. Yes, it wasn't pretty. Well, guess what? Bama did the same thing. They did it to USF. They barely beat. Who's shit? They did it to all these other. Arkansas was one of the worst Arkansas teams in a while. Barely beat Arkansas. Like, so every point that they make for Bama, you can just turn around and make for Florida State, and they were undefeated. It just doesn't make any sense. I get it's the SEC. They're the best conference in football. You can't let them not be in it. Well, in a crazy year, it happened to where it did.
See, my problem, I agree with you 100%, DePaul. My problem is just that Alabama got in. I don't really have a huge problem with the other three. It's that fourth spot. One, if Georgia would have got it or FSU would have got it, I think that it would have been fair. I really don't think that Alabama deserves to be there. And I mean, taking into consideration just some of these close games that Bama barely won that I mentioned before, and they should have been blowouts. And if they lost one, then they're not even in the top 15. And I just think that it's kind of crazy there. But this is the one thing that I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on here. Is the committee basically saying, or getting very, very close to saying that record doesn't matter? Kirby Smart did say that they were the best and they lost one game. I do not think that it's fair that their season was decided based off of one game, and one game that was also very close.
Last game of the year.
Yeah, it's not like they got blown out. I think if they got blown out, it's a whole different conversation. You know
I think Georgia beats Bama 8 or 9 times out of 10. I think that was just the way Bama was playing out of their mind. The way the cards fell, Georgia lost that day. I think we're going to talk about Florida State and deserving and the best teams that we're going to hear as well. But if you're going off best teams, Georgia's a better team than Bama. So, like, you're right, Jedi. They're throwing records out the window, and they're just doing purely eye test. They're just being prognosticators. Well, I think this. No, it's always been about your record and your conference championship. Go ahead, Dino.
So I think it's a blend of both, and I think that's where the problem is I think they're going off of the eye test while also arguing the numbers, and you can't do that. So that's where I think the main conflict is happening.
You know what I would love? I would absolutely love, and maybe we put this out on the interwebs and we can maybe get some commentator to send this to us too. Is there a model where you can enter in record strength of schedules, all that jazz, and see what the BCS computers would have put out? I would love to see what the BCS top 4 would be of this whole situation, you know, like a one-loss Bama who won the championship, like just to see how it is, because I know it favored conference championships and like wins and losses.
Yeah, so that would be interesting, and I'm gonna look into it because I'm actually
That'd
very
be cool.
curious
Just to see what it would say. Yeah, because I know this was the whole reason why we got rid of the BCS, so we didn't run into situations like this.
Right, but we ran into it anyway.
Yeah.